Hello, welcome back to another video. I hope everyone's doing well today. I'm being called to show up on camera today, which is always interesting. So I think I'm just going to be pulling cards, but we'll see what else comes through. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. As always, this will be a message that is coming through for your highest good, for everyone's highest good, for the collective highest good, the highest good of all life, all beings. And as always, only take what feels good to you, what feels right to you, what feels helpful to you on your journey, and everything else, don't worry about it. Either it will make its way to you when it needs to, or it's not for you, and that's fine, you know? So just sit back, relax, do what you would like to do. Sometimes I like to play cards while I'm listening to YouTube readings. I just like to zone out and get the messages and just sort of like play solitaire or whatever. So just do whatever feels good for you, and we'll see what comes through. All right, so I'm just gonna open up the space, asking that only what is meant for the highest good of the collective will come through, and ask that all messages be delivered concisely and in precisely the way that will be conducive to those who are tapping in, and myself as well. I always consider myself as part of the collective. And any reader that you're tapping into, you should always assume that that they are also receiving those messages at the same time. If you're tapping in as part of a collective, that means that you are working through the same energies, you are on the same vibrational frequency. They're not above you, they're not better than you, they're not farther along than you. They're just mirroring something, they're reflecting something, they are creating something to help you better see yourself, and for them to see themselves better. So never feel like you are behind. You're perfectly on time. You're exactly where you need to be. And this process is uncomfortable. Okay, I guess I'm channeling before we're even tapping into it, but this process is an extremely uncomfortable process. It can also be a really fun process and like a really interesting process, and there can be moments where it's really, really joyful and really exciting and really fun and really connective and like magical, you know? And then there are times where it's really, really rough, and it can really do us a disservice to get stuck in the process of feeling like we're not doing enough, right? We are moving this energy on like a collective basis, on the basis of the entire humanity that is alive right now, and any consciousness that has ever been or ever will be present. And so we have to acknowledge that like we are only part of this experience. Like this experience is moving through us, but this experience is moving through us as part of a collective wave, as part of something that everything in the universe is doing. And so I think sometimes we can get really stuck, and that's part of the systemic expression that we have on this planet right now, that hyper individualistic perspective that we have, especially within Western culture, that we are just in it for ourselves, that we are fully in control of our own life experience, and it is only us, and we have to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. And that can absolutely be true sometimes. Sometimes we have to take full accountability for where we're at, right? And full accountability for every single thing that we can change, that we do have access to. We can take responsibility for our perspectives. We can take responsibility for our actions. We can take responsibility for everything. And we can also remember that we are part of a collective movement that is larger than us. So there are some things that we are not in control of. And from one perspective, absolutely free will is a thing. And from another perspective, free will and divine will are exactly the same thing. So sometimes even that which feels like it is in total opposition is actually just two expressions of the exact same energy. And I've talked about this before. It can sound very abstract. I'm not sure why I'm getting into it, but I really hope that this is useful for someone out there. So just remember that you are part of a collective wave. You are right on time. You're exactly where you need to be. And as the Serenity Prayer says, you know, like, take full ownership for what you can change and accept radical acceptance for everything that you can't, right? And everything that you can't see or understand. Just because you can't fully understand from your current perspective or awareness what its function is or why it's happening, that doesn't mean that there isn't a divine reason and a divine purpose for it. That hopefully we may understand later. Later may be different lifetimes, later maybe after this lifetime, later maybe, you know, tomorrow, maybe right now, you know, who knows, right? Like, it's all good. It's all good. So, somebody out there needed a pep talk, and I really hope that this was useful for you. Maybe it was me. Maybe I needed the pep talk. I don't know. So anyways, let's get into it. So I'll just get you to take a few deep breaths. Just sort of center yourself in the space that you're in. Get really comfortable, even, you know, if you're moving, if you're doing something else, whatever, just sort of take a minute to see if there's anything that you can do to make your body more comfortable. Just shift around in your seat if you need to, get cozy, get a blanket, take a sip of water, take a deep breath. Just tune in with yourself, check in with your heart, see where you are. And just take a minute to show yourself some love. I feel like that's really what we're needing right now, is just a minute to say thank you to yourself, to just remind yourself that you are so loved and you are the vessel that has the most control over how you feel that love, right? So anytime that you have the ability to take a minute to just tune in and to tune into the vibration of love and send that vibration of love right to yourself, take the opportunity to do that and remind yourself that you are so worthy of receiving that. And the more that we tap into that resonance of love and remind ourselves that it's not any external validation, it's not any external reminder that is needed in order for us to feel that way, right? All we need to do is to tap into it for ourselves. And that doesn't mean that it's not beautiful to receive love from the external world, right? That doesn't mean that we don't need love from the external world, but anytime that you're feeling a lack of love, you can take a minute to tune into that frequency yourself and to send it right to yourself. And that will be a small action that you can take for yourself that will remind you of exactly how loved you are. So thank you for taking a minute to do that with me. And as always, I am sending you so much love too. Thank you so much for tapping in here today with me. And I hope that you feel my love. And I hope that you are able to then send that outwards, ripple that outwards, and ripple that inwards, and just keep feeding that feedback loop. Give it love, more love, more love, more love, right? And that's really what we're here to do, to remind ourselves that love is the frequency. Love is the frequency, and it's available to us at any point in time, at all times. All right, cool. So I hope that was a good introduction for someone, was a good introduction for me. I needed that to tap in just a little bit, so I am going to, oh yeah. All right, this card is still on the bottom of the deck from the last reading. If you did tap in, it's all about the wound of overemphasis of external validation. And so this is just giving us a reminder from that last time, that energy. And if you haven't tapped in and it feels resonant to you, feel free to go back and check it out. But the overemphasis of external validation, it's just an imbalance, right? It's forgetting that we have the ability, like we are the ones that are feeding that external feedback loop, right? So what are we feeding into it? And whatever we feel like we're not receiving from the external world, how can we feed more of that into it? How do we feed more of that into ourselves? How do we feed more of that into our communities? How do we feed more of that into the collective frequency on the planet? And the more that we do that, and the more that we open ourselves up to receive what is already present, right? And the best way to do that is to give it to ourselves. Open up to ourselves, receive it from ourselves, remind yourself exactly what it is that you are deserving of, that you are worthy of, and that you are creating. You are creating. And the more of us that are remembering this, the more of us that are remembering how we contribute to what we see externally, game over from the perspective of how we've been living and how we've been viewing and all of the collective shit that's coming up right now, right? Like we're looking at it so that we can look at it and see, where am I feeding that into the system? How am I contributing to that? And the more of us that stop and that take a look at what we're feeding into the collective frequency, use that external frequency as a mirror. And like I've said in other videos, it's not as simple as input in, energy out. It's like we're feeding it backwards and forwards, right? Where the external is feeding us information to, we are receiving, and we are giving, right? And the more that we understand that symbiotic relationship that we're having with our internal and external experience, the more we can collectively start taking ownership over what it is that we want to be building, what it is that we want to create. If all we're doing is looking at what's out there and reacting to it and feeding that back into the system, nothing is ever going to change. We're never going to see any change in the collective systems, right? We're just going to see more of the same. And so that responsibility, that agency starts with us. It starts with us, and we take ownership over our time, over our attention, over our emotions, over our perspectives, over how are you taking care of yourself? Where are you neglecting your basic needs? Where are you neglecting I'm not quite getting it. There's something that's trying to come through, and I'm not quite getting the so just as a side note, whenever you're tuning into a channel of energy, a channel of divine energy, what a channel is doing is we are connecting to a divine frequency. We are connecting to a bandwidth, a wavelength. And what we're doing is we are actually translating it. We're translating that energy and then putting it out into words, into a frequency, into an awareness that is going to be more understood, better understood by the collective. But we're also transmitting that frequency directly as well, right? So sometimes there are frequencies that I can't quite fully tangibly express, but I'm not going to worry about it too much because it's going to be transmitting in the way that it needs to be transmitted. So anyways, total tangent, but let's tap into what the Sacred Woundings deck has for us this time. This is going to be the energy that we're really working through since the last video that I posted, and especially to me this feels like what we were working through with this last full moon. That was a really intense energetic frequency. Okay, yeah, this definitely resonates with what was coming up. Okay, there's a lot here. Ooh, okay. But this feels very resonant to the energies that I was working through, and I hope that it will for you as well. And these all seem sort of connected to me. So what we have coming up is needing to heal an inferiority wound, addressing unhealthy coping mechanisms, needing to address an identity crisis. And this one is the most important thing, I think, that is a lifelong process, and especially within this larger process, this larger framework of when we're really needing to dissect this larger understanding of how we're feeding into the system, right? This awakening of awareness. We have to focus on needing to address existential despair, which is, I think, already the energy that I was tapping into with that little tangent that I went off on at the beginning, that channel that I was really already feeling into. And this one's a really deep one, the existential despair, right? And I think at the core of anything, whether or not you are on the spiritual awakening journey, whether or not you are still, I mean, I'm assuming that everyone that is tapping into this is on some form of it, especially, I can get pretty out there with my content. So if you are connecting to it, I'm guessing that you're pretty out there or pretty tapped in with a lot of your awarenesses as well, or you are looking to be, right? You're looking to find that space within yourself. So I'm guessing that, every single being on this planet, I think part of the human condition is this existential despair. And I don't think that it's something that can be addressed easily. So I'm not saying by any means that all of a sudden we snap our fingers and we're able to just like process through the experience of being alive, right? Like being alive is inherently going to have some aspect of existential despair in it, right? Why am I here? What am I doing? Why is this painful? Why is this happening to me? Why am I experiencing this? What is the purpose of this? What is the meaning of this, right? All of these are things that we process through all the time, right? So this particular card, what it says is this will show up as a deep sense of meaninglessness, questioning life's purpose, and feeling disconnected from your true self, which taps in as well to the identity crisis card, right? So when this feels like the overarching energy that is coming up with all of these different things, right? So the existential despair is sort of fueling these three experiences that we're really needing to move through. And it's coming from that feeling of like, who am I? Who am I? Why am I here in this particular form at this particular time in this particular moment? Why am I moving through this particular energy? Why am I experiencing this particular thing, right? Like there's so many questions, and often when we're not in the right headspace, there's always going to be more questions than answers, right? Always. And some things we will never, I think from my perspective, never understand fully. Even just the concept of like, where did existence come from? Like who created existence and why? We can use the idea of God, the universe, the quantum field. We can talk till we're blue in the face about the creator and the creation energy and all of that stuff, right? And at the end of the day, we don't know exactly where it came from, right? We don't know. And so that will always be present, I think. but I think that we can change our relationship to that, right? Because when we need to understand, who am I, you know, we need to remember that we are everything. We are infinite. And so it becomes this quest of not destroying the ego, because the ego, like we are here in this form for a reason, right? I am me. I am existing as Kendra in this human vessel. I look like this. I sound like this. I have these desires and feelings and tendencies, and I have these coping mechanisms, and I have these hang-ups, and I have this inferiority complex, and I, you know, like all of these things belong to me and are part of this existence. And I think they're there for a reason. And I don't believe that we're here to transcend them. If you believe that we are, that's cool. You know, I don't know. I don't know for sure. I'm not an expert. I'm learning all the time. I'm changing my perspectives all the time. But what I think we're here to do is to process through our relationship with these questions, right? It's not about necessarily finding answers. It's about, like, why do I need to know that? What part of me needs to feel like I understand these things in order to feel okay, to feel like I have a purpose, I have a meaning, I have a connection, I have a something, you know? We need to feel like we have a tangible control over these larger existential frameworks, these larger existential questions, right? And if we don't, we have all of these things come up. We have all of these things that come up for us when we are having an unhealthy or an imbalanced relationship with this existential despair, right? This existential framework. And I'll read the rest of this. So it says, it often stems from spiritual disconnection or unresolved inner conflicts, leading to hopelessness and confusion about your place in the world. Okay, so I think I've been really dealing with a lot of reconciliation of inner conflict. And I was actually just, because I took a really long spiritual bath before this, I really like to regularly just do energy cleanses, just tapping into what I want to feel. It's just a very intentional connection with, like, what do I want to clear? What do I want to release? What do I want to call in? And it's just basically having a very tangible experience where I can recenter with myself. I can regroup with myself and really just get clear on what it is. It's a self check-in, right? It's a self check-in. It's an energetic check-in. And I'm using things that are tangible. I like to use crystals. I like to use salts. I like to use, usually plant matter or something from the material world. To just really help myself through this process, right? And it's not about the material. It's not about what you're using. It's about how you tune into your personal power, and how you ground your personal power in your physical reality, right? How do we bridge the physical and the non-physical? And so for me, spiritual baths are very useful, but part of what I was speaking on when I was just in my spiritual bath and in my ritual process was reconciling inner conflict. And that can be really difficult, right? But as I was speaking on before, oftentimes what is an inner conflict, or what feels like an inner conflict, is actually the same energy being expressed through different perspectives. And so the more that you can see them as being in relationship with one another, you can start to harmonize. You don't have to get rid of one or the other. It's about reconciling paradoxes, right? Because paradoxes in in their truest form. By definition, a paradox is something that seems like it has no solution, but actually does have a solution. And the solution is the reconciliation, the harmonization of those perspectives. It's not even about the energy, because the energy is already expressing itself. It's just about the reconciliation of those perspectives. And so the more that we can look at it as just like, how do we play around with the mind, the framework, the systems that are running, right? How do we learn how to play with how we're viewing things? And like, the more that we open our mind and the more that we practice holding different perspectives, holding nuance, holding all of these things, as we move from a dualistic framework into or the illusion of a dualistic framework into something that's larger and more cohesive and more harmonized, which is what I believe that we're doing as a collective at this time. And what I believe this awakening process really is just moving into wholeness with ourselves, right? We get more flexible. We start recognizing like, oh, this can be true and also this can be true. And how do I use those two truths to fuel what I'm looking for? How do those two things complement each other? And where can I find the truth within those things? And how can I grasp onto the truth, the larger perspective? And like we were speaking on, I can't remember if it was last video or 2 videos ago, where we're talking about the heart space as a bridge between the physical and the non-physical. And we like to view the physical and the non-physical as two separate planes of existence. And when we learn how to bridge those things, right, it's just one example of how we're bridging those things, harmonizing those things. We recognize they're not different. They're just different expressions of the same thing. And then we can start harmonizing with that, right? Because we realize that the conflict is internal. It's inner conflict, right? It's just inner conflict. And it doesn't have to be there. It doesn't have to be there. That's just one perspective. But when we're really stuck in these two things, we're like, what am I here for? What am I here for? I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. Coming back to the full circle to what we started this video with, I'm not good enough. I'm not where I need to be. I'm not expressing in my purpose. I'm not doing what I need to do. I'm not enough. I'm not, all of those things, right? And I'll read this card. First, I guess I'll read the inferiority wound. Will show up as feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, or a constant need to prove oneself, right? And who are we trying to prove ourselves to? Who are we trying to prove ourselves to? If we are all made of the same consciousness, if we are all the same expression at our highest, then who are we trying to prove ourselves to? Are you trying to prove yourself to yourself? Are you trying to prove yourself to God or some version of God that you have placed in this role of authority, of creatorship over your life? So somebody that you're powerless to and you want to try and check the right boxes so that you'll get the right things, or, whatever, right? Like, who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to prove yourself to? So when we're in this space of trying to prove ourselves, this feeling of inferiority and self-doubt, this wound may manifest as a fear of failure, comparing oneself to others, or avoiding challenges due to the belief that you're not good enough or worthy of success. When we really dive into it, and we look at it, it's like, who are you trying to prove yourself to? What does failure truly look like from the highest perspective? What is failing? What is success? What is proving? What are you proving, and who are you proving it to, and why? And is there really the concept of failure? It's like, is that actually real? Is that a real thing, or is that a man-made concept based on expired systems that we are no longer feeding into, right? That we that I don't want to feed into anymore. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for something else. I'm bored of this this dualistic, conflict-filled existence. You know, I'm tired of it. I want to play another game. You know, and so by playing another game, we have to like make new rules. We have to make new rules. And so we have to say, like, winning within the old system, this inferiority wound is tapped into that old system, that old energy. And it's like, what game are we playing? What is winning? And who gets to decide what winning looks like? Who gets to decide what failure looks like? Who gets to decide what success looks like? And the moment that you decide for yourself what that looks like, you start to play around more with your identity. Because this identity crisis is only coming up because we think that there needs to be a fixed identity that we settle on to begin with, right? When you open up yourself to the fact that you are everything, you're infinite, your identity becomes just like an outfit, you know, like how, try it on today. What do you feel like wearing today? I love fashion. I'm a somebody who loves to express myself visually. So that to me is like a very useful metaphor, but submit whatever works for you, whatever you're excited about, whatever you get excited to play around with, whatever your passions are, whatever you like to experiment with, just drop that in instead, right? If it's not fashion, if it can be makeup or I don't know, what are people into? You know, stuff that you like. Just tap into that. What do you like to play around with, and insert that here. So it's like we can start playing around more with what that looks like when we stop holding on to the idea of the fact that there needs to be this fixed identity. This fixed identity isn't real, right? So this card says, the identity crisis will show up as confusion or uncertainty about who you truly are, leading to a lack of direction or purpose. It may manifest as questioning your values, beliefs, and role in the world, often triggered by major life transitions or a deep sense of disconnection from your authentic self. And I think especially for those of us that have gone through a really intense spiritual awakening, and I haven't talked too much about my experience, but my spiritual awakening was pretty intense. As it is, right? Of course it is. But for some people, they had more spiritual awareness when they were younger. Some people, they grew up with a spiritual identity, whether or not it was a religious identity, a relationship with God, with the universe, with whatever, right? Some people had more of this grasp on this intangible relationship that we had. But for me, I was like, so my awakening happened in maybe 2020. And I would say it was sort of it was happening. It was happening. There was something larger that I was feeling for a while after it became, or a while before it became something that was like, where that, you know, rapid awakening started, right? There was a transition period that was happening for probably, I would say, a year before that. But obviously when COVID hit, it was a huge energetic shift for a lot of people. And I think it triggered a lot of people into these really intense existential crises, right? That oftentimes transformed into this like really liberatory experience, right? This understanding of this like aha moment, of this reconciliation of our God self, and our relationship to something larger than this like material plane of existence, right? So for me, like when I first went through it, it was really beautiful and really magical and exciting, and you get full of this like spiritual ego, and like everything feels amazing and like magical, and you know, some people call it spiritual psychosis. Like I don't really like to view it that way, but like you go through this process in which like you're completely transformed, and your relationship with the material world changes because your relationship with yourself and your relationship with existence changes, right? But then oftentimes, and I'm sure that if you're on this channel, either you're going through it or you have gone through it or you will go through it, but you get shifted into this like really intense dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul is this identity crisis where all of a sudden everything that you thought you were, your relationship with your existence shifts, right? It changes. And so like what are you left with, right? And so I think oftentimes it can become this like grandiose thing, and you get all excited and you're like, you know, and then you go through this crazy dark night of the soul. And for me, I mean, I think I'm just coming out of it now. Try to, you know, like how many deaths and rebirths have I been through in the past 5 years? I don't know. I truly don't know, but I am, you know, infinitely transformed, and infinitely transforming. I am, but I'm comfortable. I'm more comfortable with that lack of fixed identity, right? And I am more comfortable with like showing up in my authenticity, and realizing that like my authenticity can change from day to day, right? My authenticity doesn't have to be the same thing. And like the more that we disconnect from the idea of like what we're supposed to be and what we're here to do, and this idea of like divine direction as existing outside of us as opposed to internally within us, right? Like we are the divine director. You are the creator. The creator lives in you. The creator lives through you. Sorry, my cat wanted to come into the room. And I'm a sucker for my babies, so what they want, they got, if I can give it to them. So in the process of that, you go through these like dissolutions of identity, and it's not that you, and at least for me, and like the desire is not to end up with a lack of identity. I don't want to have a lack of ego. I just want to have a healthy relationship with my identity, right? With my identity, allowing myself to tap into the larger aspect of self, right? Where it's like, instead of being fixated, I just have to show you Mona. She's so cute. She's so cute. That's all my junk piled over there so that I could clear space for this nice, this view. The tidy background. But I end up shifting everything over there, so, you know, see behind the curtain now. Ooh. Yeah, just developing a healthier relationship to our identity structure, and like instead of needing to figure out who we're supposed to be, and like what we're supposed to be expressing, and what our role is, and what our purpose is in this world. It's about healing our relationship to the belief that we're supposed to be something, that we're supposed to be someone, and allowing ourselves to move through and with what's present, you know, like that's really how we express our most authentic self, is like what's present and alive for you today, what's present and alive within you, and how can you best express it? How can you best be true to that particular moment in time and that particular version of self, right? And it doesn't have to look one way, and it doesn't have to look one thing, because we can hold opposites. We can express multiple things. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to. I think it's really good to constantly check in with yourself. And sorry, I'm just looking for that card, but this is talking about questioning your values, beliefs, and role in the world. Like, I think that's always useful to check into, right? You want to have that relationship with yourself. How do you have an authentic relationship with other people? How do you have an authentic relationship with God, with source energy, with your external reality, with your internal environment, if you're not being true to yourself, if you're not being authentic, if you're not allowing yourself to identify what it is and what you want and what you believe and what you want to feel and what you want to do and how you want to experience your life, because your life is yours, and you don't get to, like, we don't get to bypass that, right? And that's, like, I think the rudest awakening in some ways is, like, we don't get somebody else to tell us what it is that our life is supposed to look like, and we don't have to figure out what some external version desires from us, right? We get to decide, what does that look like? And then we have this whole other experience of, like, what do I want? If I don't have to think about what anyone else wants from me, if I don't have to figure out what God wants for me, what my purpose is, we get to then heal our relationship with, like, what do I want my existence to be for? What do I want from my life experience? And that's a really gross question to be faced with, because then we have to pull back all of the layers of the conditioning of the self that, like, is not us. It's not real. It's not the real self. It's the conditioning, right? So it's not even an identity crisis. It's basically a crisis of everything that is not you. What is in the way of you deciding what it is that you want? What is in the way of deciding what it is that you desire to experience? And so that deconditioning process is really difficult. And so I think collectively, I've been seeing a lot of people that are really talking about life and existence in this way where they're justifying their really unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I love this deck. This deck is an incredible, like, it's so specific and really taps into these, like, collective subconscious programming that we have. So this card talks about this unhealthy coping mechanisms will show up as relying on distractions, substances, or behaviors to avoid facing emotions, pain, or stress. It often stems from a lack of emotional tools or unresolved trauma, leading to temporary relief but long-term harm. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot within the collective experience right now. Because we are so connected, right? And social media can be, like, this beautiful, incredible tool for facilitating change, for sharing ideas, for sharing art, for like, I just believe that we've had these, like, quantum leaps in consciousness since we've had access to these authentic modes of expression and connecting with each other, right? Whereas, like, we used to have just media that was oftentimes biased or operating from an agenda or propaganda or whatever, and that's still out there. We have to remember that that exists on social media too, right? Social media is largely an algorithm as well, and I like to view it as a space in which we can use it for shadow work, and we can use it for mirror work as well, right? Like, we can view it as a space in which we can engage with what's happening with our inner world, and engage with what we're seeing and what we want to see and all these things, right? But social media can also be a propaganda machine. It's also being used to target you, to hijack your attention, your awareness, your bandwidth, your frequency, all of those things, right? And that's all just part of the programming that we're working through. So it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's something to be aware of when we're normalizing, 10 plus hours of screen time as a method of staying informed. And it's like, but who's informing you and what are you being informed of? Because from my perspective, it's like we have to remember that we are being informed of the feedback loop. So we are being informed of what was being broadcast collectively, what we were putting out there, now we are receiving, right? But we have to be so conscious of like, what are we receiving and what is the means of it, right? And so we're using we're using all of these things to justify our coping mechanisms. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with coping mechanisms. Specifically, I think that coping can be extremely useful, especially as we're working through other tools. And this is another video for another day. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert. Like, it depends what the coping mechanism is. It depends how self-destructive it is. It depends on how destructive it is to other people around you. All of those things, right? We always have to be in conscious and right relationship with our actions and our behaviors. But I think that oftentimes when we vilify our coping mechanisms, that can in and of itself be an unhealthy coping mechanism, because we're trying to escape from the reality of the situation, right? And we're still shaming parts of ourselves for being bad. We're still, we're still going through the exact same mechanisms, and we're self-flagellating. And then oftentimes when we're self-flagellating, that will be when we're sent into this cycle of use and abuse, right? Because we are trying to cope with our own self-flagellation. We lean on our coping mechanisms, which makes us feel worse about ourselves. So it feeds into that shame spiral, which is not useful. So that's all I was trying to say, is like, we don't necessarily have to go cold turkey with our coping mechanisms. I think a lot of life experience is about learning to have a healthy relationship with our ways of coping with this reality, right? I still struggle with certain coping mechanisms. But I think I have a much healthier relationship with them now. And the more that I have learned how to not reject those aspects of myself, the healthier those relationships become. And they can have a space in my life, and they can become enjoyable, but I have more of a right relationship in the sense that, like, I get to decide. I get to decide, and I'm in control of how I feel. So when something stops feeling good to me, I address it, instead of being in this what am I trying to say? This escapist mode. I often like to use my coping mechanisms to better understand myself, and to do shadow work and to work through those things. So, we all have to find our own relationship. And like I said, it depends on the coping mechanism. If you can die from your coping mechanism, please try and find healthier coping mechanisms that, like harm reduction, my friends, is a very important thing. And that's, once again, that's like all about this relationship that is complicated, that we have with existence and whatever. But anyway, so I think that like all of these things are really coming up to be addressed. And as we move through them, we're gonna start existing in right relationship, in healthier relationship to ourselves, to our coping mechanisms, to each other, even in our relationship with the divine, right? When we stop looking at it as an authority figure, source consciousness is something that exists within us. It isn't dictating your life. It is living your life through you, right? It is the creative force that is living existence through you. And so you are the only one that gets to decide what that existence is for. And instead of that being overwhelming, because it can be overwhelming, and you can process through those feelings too. Like, that's okay to feel overwhelmed. Sometimes I feel very overwhelmed by what this process looks like, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know what I'm doing, you know. I don't know how to move through it, and I don't know how to trust it all the time, you know, but that just is part of the game. It's part of the fun. I've been revisiting this book recently, Existential Kink by, this says Carolyn Elliot, PhD, but I believe the author now goes by the name of Carolyn Lovewell. I don't resonate with everything that she puts out there, but I do really resonate with this book for that reason. And it's essentially basically like a way of learning how to play with your existence, with your experience, with developing a healthier relationship with the things that we try to escape from. And as we, I'll just hold it up again, and I'll write it in the comments or in the description box as well. So if it is something that you want to check out, I highly recommend it. It's, you know, just one of many spiritual frameworks that I tap into, but it is really useful for me in just reminding myself to, like, that all parts of consciousness exist in me and through me. And I get to develop my relationship with those things, right? And the more that we can develop a healthy relationship with all parts of ourselves instead of trying to repress those aspects of self, the more that we can ask them to harmonize, to integrate, to figure out how to work together for the highest good. How do we collaborate so that we all have our needs met? How do we collaborate so that we can, like, how do we view this differently so that we don't maybe deal with so much suffering that we then feel like we have to escape from, right? It's about what is our relationship with reality, and, like, how do we play with that? How do we play with that structure? All right, so we're already 50 minutes in, but I'm still feeling called to pull some more cards. So I'm going to tap into this deck. This is, I haven't tapped into this for a while, but I really do love these cards. They're the Atlantis cards by Diana Cooper. I don't know if you resonate at all with Atlantean energy or, you know, the idea of a lost advanced civilization. I love tapping into Atlantean energy. I firmly believe that I had, you know, past lives in Atlantean timelines, present lives, you know, parallel lives, whatever, in Atlantean timelines. And I believe that so much of our current technology is allowing us to tap back into those timelines and spaces and redevelop what our healthy relationship looks like. How do we advance ourselves technologically? Ooh, that one popped right out. And it's a perfect message, as always, you know, divinely timed, but gratitude. So simple. Gratitude. Number 28 is the number of the card, in case you're interested. If that number means anything to you, if number synchronicities are exciting. So I'm not going to read the whole card. I'm just going to read this bottom part here. It says, gratitude is the purest form of prayer and is a key to abundance. Your guidance is to count your blessings and give thanks for that which you wish to receive as if you already have it. This will unlock the doors to universal bounty. The time is now. And the time is now, literally, in the sense that linear time is fiction, and it is simply a series of now moments that we are tapping to. So the time is now, always and forever. But that seemed really fitting for me, for sure. And that's basically it. So Existential Kink, I really feel like just helps you to be able to tap into the idea, play around with, like, how can I be grateful? How can I evolve a pleasurable experience with the things that feel uncomfortable? How do I change my relationship with discomfort? How do I reframe some of these more difficult existential questions, right? Like, there doesn't have to always be a default level of discomfort associated with something. Like, how can we find that discomfort pleasurable, and how can we change or evolve our relationship with some of these things that we're experiencing? And is there a way in which we can allow pain and pleasure to coexist? And it's not a book about sex. It's not a book. It's about pleasure in its purest form, whatever that means to you, you know, a cup of coffee, you know, like all of the things in life that are pleasurable. It can be about sex, it can be about eroticism, but it's not about that, you know? And so it's like, it's all about practical ways that we can reframe our perspective and develop a healthier relationship with all of life experience, and not just the life experiences that we think that we desire to have, right? Like, where do we learn how to desire the undesirable? Where do we get to change our relationship with that, and what that looks like and what that means? Okay, do any of these cards actually want to come out? Maybe there's not a message from here, I'm not sure. I'll try one more time, and if nothing comes out, then... Okay, there we go. Ah. All right. These cards were very, very, very useful at the beginning of my spiritual awakening. When I was first going through the process of, like, you know, I was religiously pulling cards and, like, you know, processing through a lot of this stuff, but I haven't used these cards in years, I don't think. And I'm gonna tap into the book and just see. So it's, oh, also number 28. Isn't that funny? So there's obviously a number synchronicity in there for someone. 28 is also numerology. It's a 10, which is a completion number. If you're into numerology, if you're not, that's fine. But I find numerology to be interesting. I think number synchronicities are really fascinating too. Tapping into the number. So if it calls to you, like, look up 28, see if it has any resonance for you. But yeah, so that's obviously very synchronistic. So I'm just going to tap into the book. And so this is calling on two energies. I always like to look at these energies of, like, archangels and, you know, ascended masters and stuff like that as just being archetypal energies that exist within the quantum field. They often have different energies attached to them, different awarenesses that make sense to be tapped into them, but they are present within all of us. So if you like to work with them as other beings and, like, guides, or which on some level I do as well, then these particular guides that are coming through are Master Hilarion and Archangel Raphael. And Archangel Raphael is also very associated with the heart chakra, the color green, so very synchronistic here. And this is also super helpful. So I'm just going to read this first part of this booklet here, because it seems like it's really tapping into what we're talking about. So it says, part of your divine purpose is to develop the power of your mind and use it for healing purposes. If you change your mind, you can change your world. Guidance and healing inspiration can come to you daily, helping improve your own life and the lives of others. Healing and opening the mind to new realities and possibilities are the gifts of Ascended Master Hilarion and Archangel Raphael. Just skimming to see if there's anything else that's useful. All right, so this says the mind rarely rests except through meditation, and even then, rest is not guaranteed. Resting the mind can be a tricky thing for intellectually oriented or highly creative people. Learning to switch off mentally will help you remember and apply what you are learning so that you grow not only in knowledge but in wisdom. You have been absorbing a lot of new information. You may feel you have so many tasks to do that you don't know where to start, or that if you stop to rest, you will never get through it all. This is causing you mental stress, which is diminishing your productivity. It is time to slow down and cleanse your mind. You will recognize when you have had sufficient mental rest because you shall feel a peaceful sense of vibrancy and inspiration. When you let go in this way, switching off and taking a step back, new approaches and ideas come to your mind. So work according to your own creative rhythms. So that feels very synchronistic as well to this whole reading. And learning how to work with your mind creatively. And also learning that your mind is a tool. The desire to solve things is the technology of the mind, right? It's a problem solver. But often it creates its own problems as well as its own solutions, right? And so as we develop our relationship with our mind, we develop our relationship to the tool that it is. Tools are neutral until we apply our energy to them, right? Tools are always just available to us, and we get to decide how to use them, what we want to do with them, and why, to what end, right? And so the more that we can learn to observe our mind, to give our mind space, to give ourselves integration time, and to really rewrite our relationship to rest, right? Because in our society, we don't have a healthy relationship to rest. Productivity is the default mechanism of late stage capitalism, is to produce, right? But as we've seen within this system, when we don't give ourselves time to integrate and we produce without understanding why we're producing and what we're producing and what the end goal is and what the means are and what the outcome is going to be, an exponential growth model without taking time for rest, for rejuvenation, or for even the destruction, the dissolution of the things that don't work for us, it becomes unhealthy, it becomes cancerous, it becomes an unsustainable growth model, right? And that's what our society is built on right now, especially our Western society, all of the people that are going to be tapping into this video and spirituality in these ways, right? We also have to remind ourselves that, like, these larger systems are working through us. And so we do actively have to rebalance, work in right relationship to these tools, right? Our bodies and our minds are sacred. And just because we haven't been taught how to live in right relationship with them doesn't mean that we can't develop those skills. But we have to be active in that process. And sometimes that activity is rest. Oftentimes that activity is rest, and I've really been sitting in that the past while. And anytime that I feel like I've had enough rest and I try and produce more, I often get, the sit back down, like, you haven't rested enough, you're not resting enough. And so we need to really reestablish boundaries with ourselves, boundaries with our technology, boundaries with our relationship to productivity, boundaries with our relationship to our identity in terms of what we can produce versus the whole concept of human doing versus human being. It's like, how do we do the work of reframing these things, using our mind so that it works for us and not against us? And that's something that we practice, and that we practice and we practice and we practice. And we learn to develop those skills and the tools over time that we haven't been gifted with up until this time, because they haven't been available to us societally. And the more that we rest, the more that we create what it is that we desire to create, because the opportunity to create is not based on our opportunity to just move. You know, it's not an action-based thing. It can be. Divinely inspired action is beautiful. I'm sitting here and talking to you right now, and talking to myself right now, really. I'm just talking to myself in the camera, you know? And I'm here because of that inspired action, right? But I'm learning to reframe my relationship to what that looks like. And instead of having a rigid structure of when I show up and how I show up and what it looks like, I allow that divine inspiration to move through me when it wants to. And I'm still doing that imperfectly, but I'm here and we'll continue to do it together, right? So, especially moving into this weekend, I'm filming this on a Thursday. So, and also we're in Libra season. So, take some time for like enjoyable relaxation, rest, pamper yourself, let yourself just like bathe in like comfort and coziness and beauty, because it's so nice and you deserve it. And it's also, ironically, rest is one of the most productive things that we can do a lot of the time, really, truthfully. So here's your permission. If you need any, here's your permission to rest, and to rest more than you think you need, because that's what you're actually really needing right now. So I'm just gonna get some closing messages. Oh, closing messages, and then we'll be out of here. So no specific energy healing today that I'm aware of, but all of this was energy healing, and your energy healing, their integration, is going to be the rest that I'm giving you permission to take after that. So make sure you give it to yourself, because this is a lot of energetic information that we're being shown, right? Some of these cards are backwards. I don't know why. Interesting. Oh. Anyways, we have strength and the Tower. And I think these are really just speaking to having the strength to shatter our own illusions when it comes to our ideas of what we're supposed to be doing, our layers of identity, and our relationship to ourselves and our purpose and our experience. Allow your illusions to be shattered and be strong enough to allow what is ready to fall away. And anything that is not you, anything that is not serving the most authentic version of you, has permission to fall away. And you're not losing anything, right? You're not losing anything at all. You're gaining what is the most true and authentic to your experience at this moment in time. And what is your most truest divine expression. And in that, we're gonna really know what that true experience is like, you know, and we're practicing it together. We're practicing it, but it's so fun. It's really fun, and also uncomfortable. Also uncomfortable, but fun. We're having a good time. All right, well, if you stayed till the end, or if you didn't, thank you for tapping in, and I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe, if you don't want to miss more readings, see what version you tap into next time. Which authentic expression is gonna come in next time, I have no clue. We'll see. So thank you so much for being here with me, and all the best. I wish you a beautiful, restful rest of your day, rest of your week, till the next time I speak to you. Okay, take care.